Welcome to a video from distlifestyle.com. This is a new sound pack for the Korg Multi Poly. This is the Mono Poly inspired collection. So this is a set of what we've got 58 performances on there, and we've got 113 total programs and performances. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate some of them and explain the process behind them. I thought I'd have a go at modeling the Mono Poly because the Multi Poly sort of inherits that. The Multi Poly is inspired by the Mono Poly. Mono Poly was a great instrument which had 4 oscillators and a single filter, so paraphonic. So you could do some really interesting things because each oscillator could have its own wave shape and tuning, but there was one filter for it. So it gave you some really interesting effects. So in mono mode, you could stack them up. In poly mode, it would kind of have this weird thing where the next note could be a different oscillator. So I've done a few different techniques to emulate that kind of stuff and make some different things from it as well. And yeah, some interesting different sounds have come out of doing that. So in terms of performances, there's a number of templates that I've used. Now on the Multi Poly, the standard way you think about this, you've got 4 layers and you can oscillate through those 4 layers. You can sweep through those 4 layers using layer switch, but I've flipped it around and done it more like the Mono Poly. So I've got most of these templates use a single layer, but the 4 oscillators of that layer all can do different things, and I've got some templates built around that as well. So for example, this one which you heard, it's kind of emulating 4 multi-polys because I'm using 4 layers, and if those 4 layers, each one has 4 oscillators things going as well. So I'll go through those as you'll see, and I'll go through those templates. So the concept, the way I worked, I've created some basic templates. So this one is a poly template. So 1 layer, which means it's great because it means you can use the other layers for other things as well, not just for mono poly sounds. You could have a Oberheim sound, and you can have your own wave shape sound or however you want, and I'll layer these through. So here, so there's a basic string template. So for example, this is just a basic template. It's actually in polyphonic mode. So I kept it very basic, but it models the amp, the envelopes and everything else. But that's probably the least mono poly like of the templates because it's not limited to 4 notes and all the oscillators are running at the same time. But that's one of the templates I use. And I've done some different tricks to try and achieve that. So again, they're not 100% mono poly, but they do get some interesting sounds. So for example, this one, you can hear that the first note is one oscillator, which is it. Second note is a different one, and so on. Now the Mono Poly worked by when you held the first note down, it would play the first oscillator, and you press the second one, it would play the second oscillator. So it's not quite the same thing. Here I'm switching between them one, but it gives you that similar kind of effect. And I've got another technique I'll show you in a sec, but it does mean you can get some interesting sounds out of it because here you see the motion sequencer I'm using with note and advance to pick the oscillator. So it gives you that way of create some interesting sounds. So that's a technique that I've used. Here's another mono one. This one uses the layer idea. So this one uses 4 layers, and there's 1 note of each layer plays one of the oscillators. So again, you get a different effect. So it's using the layer rotate to, as you play, it plays the next oscillator. One I've used less. And here's an example of a mono unison template. So that's using all 4 oscillators at the same time as a mono synth like you could on the Mono Poly. Right, let me demonstrate some of the sounds so you can see rather than just keep talking. So this is what I call fifths. So when you first hear it, it sounds pretty normal, but what you can see here is I've transposed two of the oscillators and we're using that note selection. So the first note is not transposed, second one isn't transposed, and then the next one is, and the next one isn't. It depends on where you are in that cycle. So if you play a 4-note chord, you will get a fifth in there. So it's interesting. So it depends on which notes you play is when you get those fifths. So here's an example of a mono sound that I've copied exactly from the Mono Poly. And I've used the cross mod to get that effect. But what we've also got on the Mono Poly, there's a Detune button. So we've got that as well. So you get that detune effect. So this one, we've got a detune on this one. You can go crazy with it, or you can dial it back. So the idea behind this one is we've got the 4 oscillators in unison mode, so all 4 are playing at once. And we've also using chord mode as well to give us a bit extra. So here you can see it's playing 4 octaves with a single note. So we've got chord mode and that to give us that effect. So this next one is a PWM. Really making use of that Mono Poly effect. And it's kind of gritty, and that's exactly what you get on the Mono Poly. So I've left that open with multiple notes on there. I did use Korg's Mono Poly VST, although it's not really that close. So I used a lot of YouTubing to get the sounds as well. But the VST is actually pretty close, but a lot of the presets don't actually use the 4-note limitations and that kind of thing. So I didn't use too many of that, didn't model it too much on that. Big organ sound or big polysynth sound. So it's a nice big sound, but it's using 4 oscillators at once there as well. And then I made a split of that. You can use the detune control. Take that down. So this next one is an interesting one. It plays a chord inspired by the chord mode, 4 oscillators playing that, and you've got the detune. But if you use mod 2, you can flatten the third and make change to a minor chord like that. minor, major. Some classic strings. I've limited this one to 4-note polyphony. I've limited the 4 because you have to play it differently when you've got that polyphony. So that's what we're modeling, the 4-note polyphony. Clever Arp. I like this one because you may know the arpeggiator on the multi-poly arpeggiates all 4 layers at the same time. You can't turn it off. I wanted a sustained bass or a pulsing bass that didn't get triggered by the arpeggiator, and the other layers do. You can't do that. But playing about with the trick bass here on the envelopes, I've managed to make it sound like this is continually playing. So you can hear that bass, it's continually playing. So there's the simple bass. Even though I play a chord, it's not arpeggiated. And then you put it with the others. And the way I did that was using the motion sequencer to get that effect as well. So you end up with the you end up with a nice sort of sort of interesting effect on there. So this is a nice sync sound. It's got some like nice artifact sounds in there, which is sort of reminiscent of the multi-poly. Then we've got this one called electric piano. So we've got this like electric piano sound here, but it's re-triggering the envelopes. So the like with the paraphonic with the filter as well to get that effect. Can you re-triggering the envelopes? Electric piano 2. Bit more of a whirly sound because of the square wave. Electric piano 3. So I called this EP Atmos because it's kind of, I was playing with those electric piano sounds and came up with sort of this atmospheric sound. here's another one that does the select of the oscillator layers. Gives you a nice sort of PWM string sound. So here's another rotating layer one. This one throws in a little interesting sound. It doesn't sound exactly like a traditional sort of 4-note chord because one of the layers is an octave higher and it's not always playing that layer. So in that case it is. There it is. There it isn't. Oh, zap. I was playing around with that, I like that. A flute. So a nice subtle sound there. Okay, so this is one I demonstrated. This is 4 monopolys. So we've got 4 layers on this one, each one using multiple oscillators. So there's the poly stabs, and you can see I'm using the motion sequencer to trigger that. And the motion sequencer to control the filter cutoff as well. We've got mono bass. And then the strings, which you can hear coming very slowly. I purposely left them quite dry as well. And again, that's using that technique of one of the oscillators is higher, an octave higher, but it doesn't always kick in. I always tend to detune them a little bit as well to give it sort of a little bit of effect on there. So this is a nice sort of gritty pad sound that came out of me just experimenting, really. And I think what gives these character is the way that the envelopes re-trigger, because it's not doing it in that full, full dynamic, all the chords, all the notes at once type thing. Like then you hear that you didn't get that aggressive attack on that note, but you do on others. So I think that's why they sound atmospheric. Okay, so the templates which I mentioned earlier. So this is another example of a layer switch. This is using the 4 layers though. So here's a traditional arpeggiator. with a bit of Oscillator on there. Simple bass, which you can detune using the detune control. Is that bass, but through a sequencer. There's that chord mode again. So this one emulates an arpeggiator, but isn't, because I wanted to keep the arpeggiator and use it for other stuff, or combine multi-layers. So it's kind of playing an arpeggiator, and it's playing a minor chord. But it's actually using the sequencer, and you can see those notes there, so you can change that to change the chord. Nice mono lead. So very much traditional monopoly, mono type sound. And power chord version. So this is a power chord, but not really. I kind of imagined it as someone in the late 70s, early 80s with the monopoly trying to make guitar power chords. And that's the kind of sound they would have got before you put it through effects. Another great sync sound. But the LFO is doing the syncing rather than envelope. So template for unison, which I'll demonstrate before. So another bell sound. Then we've got another bell type sound. And that's using the cross mod to get those. So it's quite a sort of harsh sound. But we've got that detuning on there. Okay, so a bit of fun on this one. I was picturing myself as a monopoly sound designer trying to just heard Gary Newman and the Polymoog, and so I tried to recreate that sound on your 4-note 4-oscillator synth. So that's that kind of Polymoog Vox Humana type sound, but a totally different way of doing it, because again I'm sticking to the 4 oscillators. In fact, I've done 2 oscillators on this one. So that's trying to make that Polymoog Vox Humana sound, which is by which I think is a combination of pulse width and sawtooth. So that's exactly what I've created here in mono mode. So it's not sounding like it, but it's like I imagine myself trying to create that. We've got a multi-attack trigger. I think I haven't played this earlier. So this one of the options of the multiplayer is to have that multi-trigger mode. So when you play your first note, you hear the envelope once. You play your second note, it re-triggers both envelopes. So you hear both notes. And so on. So you can hear it's re-triggering those. So each time you play a note, it re-triggers the envelopes, and I'm using the envelope controls to be note on triggered. Another nice arpeggiator called Nice Arp. Quite a harsh sound because I wanted to get sort of gnarly sound out of it, and that's because we've got the filter self-resonating but not in tune. So I could have made that feedback in tune, but I decided to make it a bit sort of gnarly out of tune. Okay, these next three are using a different technique for trying to emulate the mono poly. So I'm using the mod processors as gates for the oscillators, so that when there's more than when there's one note played down, it only plays oscillator 1. When two notes are played down, it plays oscillator 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. It's not quite like a monopoly because these are mono oscillators, they're polyphonic, but it does give you some interesting effects. So first, second, third, fourth. So you can hear that the phasing starts on there because I've got a little bit of tuning on there, and perhaps I should have a little bit more. And it gives a more pronounced effect. So that's the effect I've got on that, and I thought it was an interesting technique. It doesn't quite work exactly as I like it, but of course it does mean that you can create some really interesting sounds. So I could have a sawtooth, then a pulse width, well, that's what we've got here: sawtooth, pulse, triangle, and let's have a different pulse. So doing it this way, you can never hear oscillator 2 on its own. It will always be, when you play two notes, you hear that, or 3 or 4, but along with the others. So a nice, interesting sound there. And then I've done that with this stab. Put a bit of motion sequencer with that. And then I've also included a template for that as well. So when you're on sawtooths, you don't hear too much of it, but if I put a sawtooth, a pulse, a triangle, and maybe a sawtooth an octave higher, or even lower. So you can hear that effect, and that's not got any effects on it as well, so it's an interesting way of doing that. Okay, this one a bit of a fun one. This is that earlier one I said about the monopoly trying to be a Polymoog, and this is a polyphonic version of it because I just like the way it sounded. I like that sound. And then we've got a pluck sound, and the pluck is using the motion sequencer to control which notes we're playing. So you get 3 different or 4 different types of pluck with each note. And they're detuned as well. So they're all in, you see the one's got PWM and the other are fixed. Monopoly could only do PWM or fixed, and these 3 would have to be the same, but I thought it was quite fun that. One that I call random, but it's not really, but it's got random effect, especially on with the arpeggiator on there. So this one is a 5th one. So 2 oscillators on 1 octave, the other 2 oscillators tuned to a 5th. It gives you a really nice, interesting effect when you play it, because of the way it's allocating those oscillators. We've got a reverse filter and low. So I'm doing an inverse filter envelope to get that effect. Rotating arpeggiator. So this one is using the arpeggiator, but only on one layer, and switching between those oscillators. So each one of those oscillators is played separately, and so you can choose whatever you want on those. So you get some really interesting effects playing around with that. And a rotate mono template as well, which you can hear. We've got slow deep bass. So the envelope only gets triggered, the filter envelope, first time you play it, and then if you hold it, then it'll. That. It's what I call square to pulse. Because as it goes through the oscillators, you switch from a square wave to a sort of a thin pulse wave. So quite interesting effect. String ensemble, just nice simple, 4 oscillators, all at the same time. So it's reminded me of a string ensemble when I ended up with that one. A simple string. Again, using that technique of playing the different oscillators. Again, using that technique of selecting the oscillators. A nice sweep of the filter there. Got a sync lead. And the sync is more pronounced as you go down the keyboard. So like a trigger effect, if you had a sequencer with or an arpeggiator with a trigger, where it plays all 4 notes at once, this synth doesn't have a trigger mode on it, but I've sort of emulated that effect. By triggering the envelopes. So I've emulated that effect by using some LFOs on the. There you go. You see, I'm using that sawtooth envelope on the sawtooth. So I got that effect by using a sawtooth filter LFO that's tempo synced. So it sounds like a trigger mode on an arpeggiator. So we've got a nice warm lead. And then a wind piano. And that's combining all 4 oscillators. So there are all the performances, lots of different techniques to try and emulate that multiplier. I often find when you try and do something, you end up with something else, and that sounds nice, and that's what many of these are. So enjoy these. Download them from the digitallifestyle.com, our store. There's a premium version with everything included, all 58 performances and all the programs as well. And then there's a sort of free Cutdown version as well, so you can get those as well, which just includes some of the performances. So download the zip file. Once you've got the zip file here in your librarian, just unzip the file first, and then go to your librarian, go to import, and then just select where you located that download file or the file from the zip file, and that will import them in. There's no samples or anything, no samples on the synth, so it's really easy to get started on there. So I hope you like this set. Any comments, please let me know. I'm interested to hear what you think. Leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe and all that. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.